welcome back to an all-new episode of Serialously with me, your host, Annie Elise. I hope you are having a great week so far. It's Thursday. That means the week is luckily almost over, and then we are getting into the weekend. But a lot has been going down this week. Not only this week, but I feel like at the tail end of last week, a lot of stuff was going on too. So we've got a lot to talk about today. Now, as a reminder, if you are brand new listening to the podcast for the very first time, then let me break it down for you. Mondays, we do a deep dive. We pick one singular case, and we do a full deep dive into it, talk about all the facts, the theories, the allegations, everything we can find. And then on Thursdays, today, we do headline highlights, where we talk about everything happening this week in true crime. And just as a little, podcast snack, you're going to want to tune in to the end of this episode because I have a little announcement coming at the end. So listen for that. But like I said, we have a lot to talk about today, a lot of cases that you've been DMing me about, that you are saying, have you seen this footage? Have you seen what's going on? What the hell's going on with the Duggars? Lots of things to discuss. So I want to kick this off by surprise guest in the studio.
Shocker.
Amy is
it's
joining
me.
us.
I'm here. Amy Colette.
Hello.
Hello.
Because nobody was expecting it.
It's
A
unbelievable.
surprise. No, it's a surprise. It's rocking their world right now.
And yeah, I'm like channeling your style today.
I know. We're wearing the exact same brand t-shirt, Anine Bing, which I swear the first time I ever wore a shirt like this, somebody asked me if it was like my own name. I'm all, okay, I wouldn't just walk around with my shirt, but it looks like it because it's Anine, which kind of looks like Annie. But
I'm just not normally a graphic tee
I like
girly.
it.
It's
enjoy
comfy. I love it.
Why do you think I live in graphic tees?
I know.
They are the comfiest, so I'm here for it.
All right.
We have a lot to go over today. One of the cases is a follow-up to one you've talked about.
Well, it's been a crazy week. And then obviously you did those like breaking cases last week because we had so much going on with like
the Taylor Frankie Paul of it all, which that kind of rhymes. The Taylor Frankie Paul of it all. Which obviously this isn't a pop culture podcast, but there was a lot of news going on last week with Taylor Frankie Paul, Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. There's been so much more too over the weekend, which don't worry, I'm not going to get into that because this is not a pop culture podcast. But I did ask you on that episode that was like an emergency episode drop that released also on Thursday last week. If you guys want more pop culture stuff, to let me know. A lot of you do, so we will talk about that at some point in the future. But that was wild.
I mean, it reminded me of Scandival days where it's like the pop culture becomes the national headlines across every news platform. Like you had to talk about it.
I know. And then this weekend did some recording in the studio for a special project, which we'll talk about at the end of this episode. And it's been a busy week, O'Brien.
It's been busy.
It's been very busy. Is anything coming up? CrimeCon.
And
what?
Annie Elise merch.
Annie Elise merch is coming back. It's a-coming.
Okay, wow. You've been hanging out with Theodore
no,
too much.
That was Mario from Mario Kart. No, honestly, because we do family Mario Kart every night, which, by the way, I am so competitive, but Emmy's getting really good, and it's Mario. But they have a whole bunch of new slew of characters too, like Monty Mole and like these weirdo things. But
I have to admit how competitive I got with Theo when I was playing with him. I've never played Mario Kart in my life, so I picked up the controller feeling like, sure, I'll participate, I'll play. How could I say no to you? I'll probably lose, no big deal. And then when I was in second next to Theo, I felt that rush of adrenaline come over me. But then I'm like,
he's 6, Amy.
Do I beat my nephew?
6.
Do I let him win? But then no, we went for it,
head,
and it was a good game.
It's a wholesome family
really
event every
is.
single night, but they don't get to play unless they're doing good listenings. So, and we'll see how Emmy does at ballet this week. Okay, sorry guys, here we go. So I want to start with this first case. Well, actually, pause really quick. If you're watching this on YouTube, take a quick second, like this video, press the subscribe button, smash it in. And if you're listening on the podcast, make sure you're following along. And if you're listening on Apple, drop me a little 5-star reviewer. Okay, so let's start with this first case because this footage is, I feel like, everywhere unless it's just in my algorithm, but it is really unnerving and kind of gives like Slender Man vibes. Also, Skylar Niece vibes. And we just want to talk about it because two teen girls were arrested for attempted murder of their classmate. And this case is coming out of Seminole County, Florida. So, like I said, it's involving two teenage girls who are now both facing some pretty serious charges after planning an attack on a fellow classmate. But it's not even just that, which in and of itself is obviously beyond disturbing, but it's one of those cases where it gets way worse the deeper you get. So things all started back on January 22nd when an anonymous tip had been submitted through something called the Fortify Florida system. Now, if you're like me and totally unfamiliar with what that system is, it's basically a statewide safety app in Florida that allows students, parents, or anyone for that matter to anonymously report threats or suspicious behavior that is related to schools. Then those tips go directly to law enforcement for investigation. So, a pretty great system. I don't know if they have those in every state or county. I feel like they absolutely should, but I understand sometimes you don't have the resources to man that. But in any event, according to the reports, the tip said that a student was planning to kill another student at Lake Brantley High School. Now, the police fortunately took this seriously immediately, and pretty quickly they identified that one of the students that had been referred to in this tip was 15-year-old Isabel Valdez. They also identified another student who was believed to be involved, and that was Isabel's best friend, 14-year-old Lois Lippert. So the next morning, on January 23rd, both Isabel and Lois were pulled out of class and they were questioned. And when the investigators then searched Isabel's backpack, they found a lot of unsettling things. They found a knife, a handwritten note to her mom, some ultra disturbing drawings of Isabel and the boy classmate that they were planning on targeting and killing, and then what they describe as, quote, other concerning items. Now, these drawings, and it's almost like those kind of like cartoonish looking drawings of like violence, and we've talked about them in so many other cases. I know I always reference the Aiden Fucci case, but it's the first one that comes to mind where he had all of those disturbing drawings in his journal too, and this is kind of where it makes it feel a little bit like the Slender Man piece of it, where they're drawing this fictitious character, although Isabel wasn't drawing a fictitious character. She was drawing herself and the boy that they were planning on attacking. And it's just very haunting, okay? So the investigators say that between the evidence that they found and also what was gathered during the interviews with the girls, that they were able to piece together the plan that the two of them had. And remember, these girls were just 14 and 15 years old. So according to investigators, Isabel and Lois had allegedly planned to lure this specific male classmate into one of the bathrooms and the bathroom stalls in the school property, on the schoolyard, whatever you would call it. Now, the idea was to get him into a stall and then either slit his throat or stab him in the stomach. She then planned to, quote, leave flowers for his funeral at the scene, then smoke a cigarette and leave. As if it's so casual. You lure this guy into a stall of the bathroom, you either slit his throat and stab him in the stomach, you sprinkle some flowers around, you smoke a cigarette, and then you leave. Like it's a ritual, which, don't worry, I'm going to get into more of that here in a second, because it doesn't stop there. What prosecutors now are saying the motive is behind this entire plan is now what has pushed this case to an entirely different level. And this too is where it starts to bring in more of those, like that undertone of Slender Man, if you're familiar with that case, which if you're not, let me give you like the 3-sentence Cliff Note version. Slender Man is a fictitious character and he's like this really tall, skinny guy. He like lives in the woods, and I don't remember if he like lures children in or what he does. But these two girls basically believed that he was real and that in order to be invited to his castle or his home, they had to make a sacrifice and kill another person. So they both turned against their other third friend and stabbed her several times trying to make this sacrifice for Slender Man. Fortunately, this little girl, Peyton, survived, but it was a very interesting, complex, and unsettling case. Side note too, Morgan Geyser, one of the girls who did commit this, then was released, which was a freaking disaster in my opinion. She went on the run. She was, I think, had even planned to hurt somebody else. She luckily is back in custody now, but you can search those episodes in the archive. So anyway, this is why I'm saying that it gives Slender Man. Because according to the documents, the girls allegedly wanted to use this victim's blood in some kind of ritual. This was all tied to an obsession with the Sandy Hook shooter, Adam Lanza. Now, you may not have heard that word for a while, right? Sandy Hook, the horrific mass shooting that took place in Connecticut. Well, apparently Isabel, she had an obsession with Adam, and she believed that if she killed her classmate, she would have a blood bond with him, and that somehow it would bring him back from the dead. Which, first of all, I don't know how that works. I don't know what these kids are watching or listening to where they believe in all of this weird fantasy type stuff that's like actually dark fantasy. But now that I think of it, Amy, when was Sandy Hook? Because how would a 15-year-old girl know enough about Sandy? Wasn't that over 10 years ago?
I think it was 2012 or 2013.
So she would have just been born. She would have been in diapers. So how would a 15-year-old girl even know enough about Sandy Hook unless she's so disturbed that she's researching it? Yeah, and like becomes fixated on this guy. But like that's bizarre. Like, because Slender Man at least is like this dark fantasy thing that I don't want to say is kind of like, you know, always out there, but it's like a story, like Little Red Riding Hood, for example. Not that's a bad example, but you know what I mean? It's like, oh, it's a story that doesn't matter what age you'll learn about it or hear about it possibly at some point. I guess you would learn about Sandy Hook in history books now, just like 9/11. That's how old we are. They weren't in our history.
Well, I think just school shootings in general like have
Columbine.
Become like more of a commonality, unfortunately. And so people... I mean, that I was just thinking when we were in high school, I mean, nothing like this. Obviously, this isn't normal or commonplace regardless, but this wasn't even a discussion in school of these crimes, let alone hearing about people planning them. It was just not on our radar, where now true crime is much more common.
Yeah,
it's
you hear
something
about
people
it more.
are discussing at a younger age.
But even school shootings, and I don't want to get off topic too much here, but even school shootings for that matter, when we were growing up, Columbine was it.
Yeah.
You know?
And that's when I was in high school.
Yeah.
I never was exposed to that at a younger age.
No. And it's not that we just had like blinders on. It just really wasn't happening, you know? So my point is, like, it's this drawback to history while she was like a toddler or even before she was born, and she became fixated on him and thought that by sacrificing her classmate, she would not only bring him back from the dead, but share a blood bond with him, which that's where I get super concerned and, you know, disturbed with so many teens that we're hearing believe in things like that, to where it's like, what are they consuming? Obviously, social media is horrible at such a young age, and like the video games and all of that, but where they actually believe that this is real.
It's like cult-like.
Yeah, it's very scary. And I always say this term and I always butcher it, but you guys tell me in the comments. Folie du?
Never heard of that.
You haven't?
No.
I think we've said it before and you also had said you've never heard of it. It's basically when like two people meet and they're so diabolical. Like, how does that work? And then they do it. It's like the Joker and what's her face?
I'm not a Batman
Harley
gal.
Quinn. Okay, forget it. But anyway, it's like this phenomenon where it's also kind of like, how do these two people connect? Because you could argue both of them perhaps have mental health issues, but it's also like, how do you become best friends and then you both think that way and you both truly believe that you can bring someone back from the dead if you do this? It's just like,
I think we were talking about that kind of connection with the people who are in charge of twin flames.
Yes. Where it's like, how do you both have such shared delusional thinking? Yeah. So anyway, that all went down, and obviously is super unsettling that they believed this is what would happen. And thankfully, because of that anonymous tip that had come in, none of this actually came to fruition. The plan was stopped before anybody was physically harmed, which is obviously the best possible outcome in a situation like this. However, what's actually really out there and fueling public reaction is what happened after their arrest. Because both of these girls were placed in the back of a patrol car and they didn't realize they were being recorded. Very much like Aiden Fucci. Actually, he didn't know he was being recorded, but he also recorded himself on Snapchat because he's a little weasel. But in this footage of these two girls, they're laughing, they're joking. At one point, Lois even says, "This is such a bonding experience. I love this." And then Isabel says she doesn't even feel guilty. They were also talking about the potential prison time that they may have to serve, joking about their mugshots, and just acting completely unfazed by what they were being accused of, which, for those of you watching on YouTube, take a look at this video. If you're listening on the podcast, listen to it. And then if you want to watch the video, warning, it's unsettling. You can go check it out on my YouTube. But take a listen.
Yeah, promiscuous. We're gonna become one of those lesbian couples now in jail.
Yeah, and you could be the
Yes. Hey, this is my stay away.
Yeah.
Ooh, you trying to look good for your mugshot?
Oh, am I gonna get a mugshot?
Well, we're going to jail. What do you think?
Oh yeah, that's crazy.
Dude, I was gonna do my makeup this morning for the mugshot, but I couldn't find anything.
I'm glad I don't actually look too bad today.
I look horrible.
And,
It's over.
and don't worry, you don't need to, don't worry, you're the it doesn't matter if you look bad. Yes, I'm gross. Like he's probably gonna be like he's gotta be told like you can't. They can't just.
I wrote him a note, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm not guilty for my actions, but no, I was like, I don't feel guilty for my actions, but I feel guilty on how you were gonna feel. Because honestly, I don't care."
So obviously, that was very disturbing. Prosecutors have since pointed to the behavior as a major reason that they believe that the girls pose a serious danger to the public, which, hello, obviously, there's no remorse. They think it's funny. They don't know the severity of it, or they're not realizing the severity of it. So because of all of this, both of the teens have been charged as adults. Isabel has been charged with attempted first-degree murder and also possession of a weapon on school property. Lois has also been charged as an accessory to the crime, and both girls were denied bond at their hearing. Now, I think what makes this case not only hit so hard, but also why it's pretty polarizing out there right now, is because of the combination of everything, right? I mean, you have their ages, 14 and 15 years old, the level of planning, drawing things, building up to it, knowing everything you were going to do all the way down to sprinkling the flowers and smoking a cigarette, the alleged motive of this blood bond and bringing somebody back from the dead, and not just somebody, but a school shooter, regardless what your beliefs are on Sandy Hook. I know a lot of people think there's conspiracy there. But then just the complete lack of remorse that was caught on video in the back of this cop car, too. It's just deeply unsettling. And I want to just throw this out there. Imagine being the boy that they planned on targeting and the fear that he must be living with right now. What a scary realization, which we don't know his age, but I would imagine similar age, right? Imagine finding out when they notified him of what the plan was, which I don't know that there would need to be a reason, I guess, to notify him to scare him if they were able to foil the plan, but I would imagine he still would learn about it at some point. But yeah, at that age, 14 or 15, and you learn, oh, you were almost killed today at school by these girls. That is.
Or his parents.
Yeah. Oh, I would.
You're never going back to school again.
No, it is terrifying. And they're also, I want to say this. So this case has really fascinated me. So I've been foying like crazy, fighting the courts right now to get footage, get information. There are a lot of weird notes that were left behind, more body cam that is ultra unsettling. I'll leave it at that. So as we've gathered a lot of this information and a lot of the media involved in this, I'm going to tell you right now, a deep dive is coming. However, I do want to just say this, and I'm sorry for all of my podcast listeners, because there is so much video involved in this, that I feel like you truly need to visually see the body cam, the reactions, the body language, all of these things. I think that episode will only live on YouTube because I just think it's more of a video experience. However, let me know in the comments if you really want me to cross-post it. If you're like, no, it's fine, we can figure it out, post it anyway. But I do think that it's just easier to understand and digest if you watch it on YouTube. So we're going to try to get that out ASAP, but make sure if you're watching this right now on YouTube that, again, you press subscribe so that you don't miss that because it won't be in the regular release schedule. And if you are a podcast listener, you may want to just, in a few days, pop over to YouTube or even pop over to YouTube right now and subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss that. But there is a lot we need to go over, and we don't have enough time in today's episode to go over everything. So as of now, the case is still ongoing. There are more court proceedings that are expected in the coming weeks. And yeah, we're going to just follow this closely. But anytime there's teen violence, it's very disturbing.
Well, when I saw that footage of the body in the back of the cop car, you just can't believe it because you think there's two girls who just had this huge thing unravel and they're in the back of a cop car for something so serious. They don't care at all.
No.
And I was also thinking how could you ever be peer pressured into joining that plan with somebody?
No.
And then now you're in the back of a cop car. If anything, I would hope that would be the sobering moment where you're like, what did we just do? Like, why were we planning this horrific thing?
Mhm.
Why did I let you talk me into this? But instead, they're like laughing and making light of it. And
It does seem like Isabel was the ringleader in this. So, and Lois was charged, as we know right now, as an accessory. So, still, though, both as adults, which is very serious.
Mhm.
However, it's also Florida. And we talked about this recently with another case because, no offense to all my Floridians, but what's in the water in Florida right now? But we talked about, who was it? It was a young, was it a girl or a boy? I mean, we've talked about so many
I
cases
feel like there's been a lot
where
coming out
it's
of
a
Florida.
minor. I think it might be Anna Kempner.
Oh, her stepbrother.
And how in Florida, the law is that if you are charged as a minor and not as an adult, that you're released at 21.
Mhm.
So the fact that they were the fact that they were charged as adults means obviously that that's not going to happen, which is great. But hopefully this is the moment that Lois is kind of having that reflection point and realization of like, what the hell did I
Choose
agree
your
to
friends
here?
carefully.
Choose your friends wisely.
I feel like mom and dad would be very proud right now that we can finally say that.
I can finally say that because I did not choose my friends wisely.
Exactly, same.
From 16 to 21, my friends were trash. They were ass. They were
No
not
offense.
good. Yes, no offense if you're listening and supporting this. Most of them. Why do you think I ended up with all these ugly ass tattoos? But choose your friends wisely. Word to the wise. And that's why Theodore is in chess and swim
angel.
and origami.
Emmy's the one you've got to worry about.
Yeah, Emmy's the scary one. Okay, so now we have an update in a case you talked to us about a few weeks ago, right?
Yes. We've got an update on Genesis Nova Reed. If you remember, we covered this back in headline highlights in late February, and it's about a 2-year-old little girl in Alabama who just seemed to vanish overnight. And just to quickly recap, on February 16th, Genesis's mother, Adrienne Reed, reported her missing, claiming she had just disappeared in the middle of the night. But almost immediately, things didn't sit right with investigators. Within days, the story completely unraveled, and Adrienne was actually arrested for false reporting, after police said the timeline she gave just didn't add up. And then neighbors started speaking out, saying they hadn't seen Genesis in weeks. Some even said the last time they remember seeing her was around Christmas, which would have been almost 2 months before she was reported missing. And that detail alone made everyone pause, because that meant that this wasn't only a child who just went missing, this was a child who allegedly had been gone for weeks, and no one had reported it. Reports also said that Genesis's bedroom was completely cleared out as if no child had ever lived there. And you remember the carpet had been cut out and there had even been a mattress found nearby. So police and people in the community searched for Genesis for weeks, even bringing in drones, cadaver dogs, hoping to find her, but they had no luck. Now fast forward to the most recent update. This is where the case takes a devastating turn, and what investigators say they uncovered just honestly was a lot to process. According to law enforcement, it's believed that Genesis was likely killed around Christmas Day 2025, which, looking back, lines up exactly what the neighbors had been saying all along. Investigators believe that after her death, her mother placed her body into a duffel bag and then disposed of it in a dumpster. Police say they reviewed surveillance footage from a neighbor's house that shows Adrienne walking towards the dumpster late at night, pulling what appeared to be a rolling duffel bag at 11:20 at night. And then Adrienne returned back 2 days later to that dumpster with toys and belongings believed to belong to Genesis. And over the course of the last month and a half since Genesis was reported missing, police have executed dozens of search warrants, combed through digital evidence, and tracked movements across multiple locations to piece this together. And after piecing this all together on March 9th, which would have been Genesis's 3rd birthday, Adrienne Reed was formally charged with capital murder and abuse of a corpse, and prosecutors have confirmed that they are seeking the death penalty. The Coffee County DA said in a statement, quote, "The evidence shows that Adrienne Reed killed her daughter, literally threw her in the trash, and then engaged in a 53-day campaign of deceit, lies, manipulation, and destruction of evidence before she finally reported her missing on February 16th. Her conduct speaks for itself, and I believe this preliminary decision to seek the death penalty conforms to our community's beliefs about this case. But the thing that makes this even more complicated is Genesis's body has still not been found. Authorities believe her remains are somewhere in a landfill in Coffee County, but because of how trash is processed, usually compacted, transported, and layered, it's not a simple search. The process of figuring out where her body might be involves mapping the landfill by truck schedule and using GPS monitors on the equipment there. Officials have narrowed down the area to a 200 by 100 foot area, approximately 8 to 10 feet deep with waste. But even with that area mapped out, it still could take weeks, even months, to go through everything and to find Genesis, which means right now prosecutors are building a case without a body. And if that sounds familiar, that's probably because people are already drawing comparisons to cases like Casey Anthony, which we did too when we covered it, where there's a lack of physical evidence that becomes a major factor in court. But the prosecutors are making it clear that they believe the surveillance footage, the timeline gaps, and the digital evidence are strong enough to move forward. And honestly, one of the biggest things that keeps coming up in this case is that if Genesis truly did go missing around Christmas Day and wasn't reported missing until mid-February, that's nearly 2 months. So this is obviously still very much still unfolding, and there are a lot of questions that still need answers. And as always, we will be updating you as we become aware of them. But very, very sad case, and praying that they recover poor little Genesis.
I know. It is interesting. I mean, a no-body crime sometimes is difficult to prosecute, but it seems like they do have a lot of evidence. And for that window of time, I would say her devices will probably share a lot of information. What she searched, what pictures were not on there of Genesis when the last photo was taken of Genesis. And they'll probably be able to use that to then build a bigger case as well, I would imagine, as they wait to. But it seems like they've at least narrowed in an area to locate her. It's just going to now take time to search.
And remember, she had that prior arrest because she had assaulted her mom with that sharp weapon, but we never really heard any more about what happened with that either. Yeah. So maybe, hopefully, all that information will come out.
Another monster mother. Okay, so this next case, I honestly don't even know where to start because it kind of just feels like we're right back here once again. It's like another Duggar, another arrest, and not just him, but also his wife. So last week, Joseph Duggar, who many of you guys might know from the old TV show 19 Kids and Counting, you probably also just know the Duggar family name. Well, he was arrested, and he is now facing serious charges involving a child. According to investigators, this all goes back to an incident that took place in 2020 during what was supposed to be a family vacation in Florida. A young girl who was just 9 years old at the time says that she was violated by Joseph. And that report has now led to Joseph being charged years later. And believe it or not, Joseph allegedly admitted to everything. He admitted all of this to the child's father, and not just to her father, but also to law enforcement. The affidavit says that Joseph, quote, admitted his actions, saying he, quote, touched the victim over her clothing. It also says that Joseph admitted that his, quote, intentions were not pure. Now, of course, this still has yet to be proven in court, but I think that his confession there, that is a huge piece of this case that is coming directly out of the arrest affidavit. So he was arrested on March 18th, and he's expected to be transferred back to Florida to face these charges, which, again, are lewd acts of a child under 12. However, that is not where this story stops, because within days, literally days, his wife, Kendra Duggar, was also arrested. And this is where things start to feel even more layered and honestly a little bit confusing, if I'm going to be real with you, because Kendra is now facing multiple charges in the state of Arkansas. And these charges include child endangerment and false imprisonment. And while she has since been released on bond, officials are saying that her charges are not directly related to Joseph's case, her husband. Which, I'm sorry, but how do you have two separate arrests involving children in the same household, days apart, and they're not connected? Unless it's they were on that family vacation in Florida, that's where that went down, but then they went back to Arkansas, and that maybe they, held this child against her will for intimidation, or who knows what really happened. I mean, we obviously will find all of that out, but it's deeply unsettling. And then, as if this couldn't get even any more unbelievable, another dirty Duggar enters the chat. Because Josh Duggar, yes, the Josh Duggar, has now reportedly reacted to his brother Joseph's arrest. Not directly, but through his attorney. According to that statement, Josh, quote, expressed sympathy for Joseph and says he knows what a toll it takes on someone to be falsely accused. Which, sorry, but the first problem that people have with that is that Josh Duggar is currently serving more than 12 years in federal prison after being convicted of multiple counts of sending, receiving, CSAM material involving children, his own dirty deeds that he did. I mean, he's a freaking foul human being. I could talk forever on that piece of shit, which none of that is alleged. This has been proven in court. Also, there is a video. I'm not going to name the title of the video because I don't think anybody needs to know what it is. Being in this world, I haven't seen it myself. Let me throw that out, and I will never, ever view it. But there is a particular video in the CSAM world that has a specific title that has been deemed by officials as the worst possible CSAM material out there. And this video was found on Josh Duggar's computer when he was arrested. So it wasn't like, and I'm not trying to make light of, sending and exchanging CSAM material is okay in any regard. It's obviously not. It doesn't matter the age, the circumstance, but he also had the absolute worst possible CSAM file that exists on his device, which shows you just what a sick and depraved, vile human being he is. Now, the second issue that I have with this piece of shit dirtbag Josh, and sorry, now I'm getting mad because I hate this guy. He's talking about his brother being falsely accused. And oh my God, what a toll it takes on you to be falsely accused. I've been there, I know. And it's like, your brother, Joseph, he admitted to it in the affidavit. He told not only the child's father, but he told the authorities, and said, yeah, my intentions weren't pure. I did do that. So falsely accused, where? I mean, it's not like he's claiming that he didn't do it unless he's going to start recanting, but it's, the cat is already out of the bag, my friend. So I don't know. Did Josh think that he could just now swoop back into notoriety and save the day by claiming his brother's innocence? Like anybody would even believe this piece of shit? Oh, well, you know what? Josh Duggar said that his brother's innocent. And even though he's serving 12 years with the feds for what he did, we should totally believe him. Are you out of your mind? And not to mention, I'm just going on a rant here, his face, man, it infuriates me. All of the Duggars. I hate every single one of them. And I'm going to talk about the family in a minute here too. So the fact that Josh is now weighing in and the tone of that statement, while the authorities are obviously saying that Joseph admitted to what happened, I mean, I think I'm not alone in having a strong reaction. I think a lot of people out there are having a strong reaction. And the truth is, when you zoom out of it for a second, this isn't just one isolated situation. This is another Duggar involving another case with another child. And it's also another moment where people are saying, how the hell is this even happening again? I thought we got rid of Dirty Duggar. You're telling me there's more? You're telling me they're all filthy and disgusting, even the women? What is going on? So it has fueled massive amounts of speculation about the Duggar family and the dynamics within that family. How the kids were raised, what the parents may or may not have taught them growing up. Because as we know, this family has already been at the center of one of the most high-profile scandals involving abuse. And now, here we are again. Which, talk about shame from the parents. You just see your kids getting knocked over like dominoes for these charges, but also it's apples don't fall far from the tree. These parents are weirdos in my opinion too. And speaking of them, I personally thought that they were Mormons. I thought that they were maybe a different sect and maybe they had been radicalized or something like that. But as I did some digging, it turns out that they're not Mormon, which I don't know if you guys all knew that. I just assumed, this is going to sound assholey, but by the way they dressed and the big family they had, I just kind of assumed they were Mormons, but they're actually independent fundamentalist Baptists. So in addition to their religion, they follow a conservative Christian organization that is known as the Institute of Basic Life Principles, which, basic life principle, in my opinion, isn't that you touch a child underage, but maybe they're learning different life principles. And what I found interesting when I looked into this is that the Institute of Basic Life Principles, which is also known as IBLP, it's widely considered to be a high control group or cult-like organization. And former members have spoken out, including researchers and critics. And even though they say they identify as a Christian ministry, people who have been in that group say this is a cult, which then that all clicks to me. I'm like, oh, that's why I thought they were Mormons. No offense. Like, not that I think Mormonism is a cult. Don't come for me. But like, the radicalists who then join cults, like the Daybells, or, Ruby Frankie. And then you see also like the FLDS, where that's like the fundamentalist group of LDS, where they all dress that way. And the Duggars kind of have that same look to them. So it's not Mormonism, but cult. It's like they all got the memo. This is the uniform. Wear your hair in a braid. Have long hair. I don't know. So people have said that our former members and researchers and critics, they have said that IBLP is extremely controversial for enforcing strict authoritarian rules, promoting rigid patriarchal structures, and having a history of sexual allegations against founder Bill Gothard. Which we know too, the whole like patriarchy of it all with the Duggars, and how like all these women, and not all of them, but a lot of them, covered for the bad behavior of their husband. Now we know that Kendra is arrested for her own charges and involvement apparently in some regard. So I don't know. Obviously it's ongoing. I'm going to be watching this very, very closely. There are still a lot of unanswered questions, especially when it comes to Kendra's charges and what exactly was happening behind the scenes. So I will absolutely keep following every single update as it comes out. But I do want to know your thoughts on this one. And also, let me know if you want the Duggar deep dive. Not that anybody, I hate that name so much. The Duggar deep dive, whether you want to go back into what Josh did, and I could just like skim the surface of that, whether you want the deep dive on this whole new situation and what the wife's involvement was, as well as Joseph's. It might get a little dicey, especially we know how much YouTube likes to censor me now, but let me know if you want the deep dive into like the whole Duggar dynasty, if you will, because there is a lot of bad behavior that has gone on throughout all of the family members. And don't quote me on this, but I remember, and I don't know, Amy, if you remember this, it was either at the time of Josh's arrest, or maybe it was shortly before, maybe it was shortly after, where they had come out to and said that like when they were younger, there was touching of the siblings and contact between the siblings, and that the parents sent one of them off to like a camp or something, to like a treatment type of camp, almost like one of those boot camp things, and that they kept it within the religion and like talked to their pastor or bishop or whatever it would be, and that there was a lot of like sibling on sibling stuff happening as they were growing up too, which happens in cults.
Anytime I hear that last name, I've just lumped it into one of those things where I just like try to push it out of my mind, because I just I put them under this umbrella that they grew up in this weird, dysfunctional, sick home.
Mm-hmm.
They became sick and did horrific things later. And I just haven't ever done a deep dive on them, just because I almost didn't want to know. But
maybe I'm regretting saying, do you guys want the deep dive? Because I don't know if I do want to expose myself to that deep dive. Last time I asked if they wanted the deep dive for the guy who was like the corpse robber and collector, and everybody's all, yes, yes, yes. So I did it, and I was all, it just actually released last Friday on YouTube. I was all, at the beginning of the video, I even said to the camera, "Mom, why the hell did I do this? Like, why did I even ask you guys? This is sick."
Well, because it's like unbelievable. And then you think, if there's a spotlight on your family, your brother is in prison, why are you now going out and committing the same crime? I mean, similar crime.
I know. I think it's obviously a choice, but I want to be careful.
It's a sickness as well.
It's a sickness, and I want to be careful with how I say this, but it's almost like it's learned behavior from such a young age that maybe even though they know it's wrong, they're desensitized to it, and it's like an impulse thing where they don't have the impulse control, which certainly doesn't excuse it. It's like, great, castrate yourself. I don't give a shit, like do what you got to do. But like the fact that there's so much of the same shit happening within this family, I think speaks volumes. It's not just like one outlier who has these impulses and, desires. It's rooted, I think, in their upbringing. And I think that's evident too in the sibling on sibling stuff that they went through.
It's that cycle which you hear about all the time,
but
unfortunately.
But then think, okay, well, Kendra was an outsider. She married into this. She didn't grow up with all that. So what was her involvement in the cult?
But I'm curious to know, what are these charges and what exactly was the situation? And like, was she...
I mean, my thoughts, and I could totally be wrong, we'll find out, but if it's child endangerment and false imprisonment, I think that it was not allowing the child to leave, or if the child was going to go tell someone, like keeping them in a room, maybe like not like trapping them for months, but like say like an afternoon where it happened, and then she wanted to run and go tell her dad. And they're like, no, don't leave. We're going to keep you in here. We're going to talk about it. We're going to figure it out, which that is technically false imprisonment. So, and maybe it is something way more severe than that.
Could it
I
be
don't know.
because the vacation was in a different state? And like,
Well, no, because her charges are in Arkansas. So if she was doing that in Florida, it would have been on the vacation.
but do you think that was the child from Arkansas? Like, was
think
she
they're
not
all
supposed to
from
take them to Florida or something? And like, that's the imprisonment?
No, because I think it was a whole family vacation.
That's crazy.
I don't know. It's weird. So I'm really, really going to regret saying this. But if you want the deep dive, let me know in the Q&A section on Spotify or the comment section on YouTube. And if you can see right now, I'm just closing my eyes and like secretly praying. Don't ask for the deep dive. Say you don't want the deep dive. Say, no, Annie, we don't want it. But
I think after you said that thing about Josh, everyone's going to be curious how he had the worst piece of material.
Even in the deep dive, I will never say that file name because nobody ever needs to look into that. I know the context of what is on that file, and that is enough to honestly make me sick to my stomach. But he had that, which shows you what for that, it's like that wasn't just learned behavior and like the norm in their family. Like, you are seeking out something that is so vile, you know? Creeps, the dirty ass Duggars. All right, I need to take a beat. Please take over the next case while I gather myself and like take a freaking Ativan or something. Jesus, God.
Well, I know I sent this one to you because it was all over the headlines, and I think it's an international case and it's been making headlines internationally. I think because it's everyone's worst personal nightmare, if you think about it. We're talking about Stephanie Piper, a 31-year-old influencer from Graz, Austria, who is known for posting beauty, fashion, and singing content online. On November 23rd, 2025, Stephanie attended a Christmas party, and it was a completely normal night. Nothing out of the ordinary. Later, she headed home and messaged a friend saying she made it back safely. But then, she sent a second message saying she thought someone was in the stairwell of her building. More specifically, that there was, quote, a creep in her stairwell. And that message ended up being the last time anyone heard from her. She didn't show up for work the next day and right away was reported missing. It just wasn't like her to miss work, especially when she had a very important shoot scheduled for that day. Neighbors said the night she disappeared, that same night that she had sent those texts, they heard loud arguing and saw Stephanie's ex-boyfriend in the building. At first, this was treated like a missing persons case, but investigators didn't have to look far before focusing on one person, her ex-boyfriend. And within just a few days, he and two of his family members who were believed to be involved were arrested and taken into custody for questioning. And that's where things escalated very quickly. According to investigators, he allegedly confessed and told police that after an argument, he attacked and strangled Stephanie. But then, he didn't call for help or report anything. Instead, investigators say he placed her body into a suitcase and drove it across the border into Slovenia. Authorities said that after he crossed the border, he took the suitcase into a wooded area, buried it, and later burned his car near the border in a casino parking lot, allegedly trying to destroy evidence. Based on that confession, police were able to locate the suitcase, and inside, they found Stephanie. At that point, the case was clearly horrific, but it seemed pretty straightforward based on that confession and the evidence that matched his story. But it wasn't exactly as cut and dry as it looked. And here's where things get extremely horrific and hard to process. Prosecutors have recently said that it's entirely possible that Stephanie was still alive when she was placed inside that suitcase and buried. She was found with injuries on her face that they said could have come from attempting to bludgeon her way out of that suitcase, which is obviously so scary to even think about. And again, everyone's worst nightmare. Now, to be clear, this hasn't been verified by the medical examiner yet. It's just something investigators said was possible based on the early evidence, but it still is raising a lot of questions. If she was strangled, was it not fatal? Did she lose consciousness, but not actually die? Did she wake up? Was she aware of what was happening? So what investigators are trying to determine right now is not just how she died, but when. They're looking at whether injuries she had happened before or after her death, signs of asphyxiation, and whether there is any indication that she was breathing while in that suitcase. And if it turns out she died from being inside that suitcase, from suffocation, from lack of oxygen, from being buried, then that changes everything. Legally, it can impact charges and show proof of prolonged suffering. And emotionally, it makes this case even more devastating because it means there may have been a window of time where she was alive, trapped, and unable to escape. And when you think back to that final message, her saying she thought someone was in the stairwell, it holds an entirely different weight now because she obviously could have never imagined or seen this coming. So investigators are continuing to process forensic evidence, and the autopsy results will be key in confirming what exactly happened in those final moments. Stephanie's ex-boyfriend is currently awaiting pre-trial in Austria and is expected to face his trial later this year. If he's convicted, he's looking at a sentence of life in prison. And as of right now, this is one of those cases that everybody's talking about, has a lot of questions about, and wondering what really happened to Stephanie that night.
I feel like those are two of my worst fears, being buried alive and being burned alive. Obviously, she wasn't burned.
Or drowning.
But like drowning, that scares me, but I've heard
it's peaceful.
It's peaceful. Being buried alive scares the shit out of me. And if she had blunt force trauma trying to escape, like hitting her head trying to break through, that is so awful to think about.
I know. I think what really like hit me with this one, outside of it just being horrible, was I think of as a girl how many times I've texted a girlfriend. I've even done it to you where I'm like, I feel like there's something weird going on, or like, and while of course in that moment you feel like I'm telling somebody, so I'm saying something, you're not necessarily taking it as a super serious threat or necessarily doing anything to defend yourself. And and they said like it hits differently now, those last text messages. And it's true
the creep in
because
the stairwell.
when she recognized her ex-boyfriend.
God, what a nightmare.
I know. I can't imagine that.
Which, speaking of like crazy relationships, I don't know if you guys have been following the trial of Gerhard Koenig. We talked about this case about a year ago. I think on Headline Highlights, maybe it was a bonus episode. I can't remember. But Gerhard Koenig is 46 years old. His wife, Ariel, is 36 years old. He's an anesthesiologist, and basically they were living in Hawaii, and they had had a little bit of a tumultuous relationship and marriage. They were in couples counseling. Ariel thought that it was working. So on her birthday, he's like, hey, let's go for a hike on this like beautiful lookout trail in Hawaii. We'll celebrate your birthday. She's like, okay, great. So they go out on this hike, and he's like, hey, let's take a selfie together. We're like right here, which was like cliffside. To which Ariel was like, no, I'm a little too scared to do that. Like, look how steep it is. It's dangerous. You're not even supposed to really hike on this trail. There's actually signs saying like professionals only, you know, at your own risk, all of these things. So anyway, she says like, no, I don't want to take this selfie. This enrages him. So he then allegedly pushes her in the bushes, tries to attack her. A fight ensues. He allegedly hits her over the head with a rock 10 times, then pulls out a syringe that he had in his fanny pack and tries to inject her with it. She luckily like knocks it out of his hands, and she starts running, screaming. Other hikers find her. They call 911. He goes on the run. There's this whole manhunt. He calls his 19-year-old son, basically says goodbye, kind of like this confession to what he was trying to do. But then now his defense team is saying this wasn't a confession. It was a mental health crisis. Anyway, it's a very interesting case because, as I said, he's an anesthesiologist. He certainly had access to different types of medications. Why would he have syringes with him on this hike? They later found a fanny pack at his house that had propofol in it as well, which is like the thing that killed Michael Jackson, if you remember. And he had other medications that weren't properly stored either. And it kind of, there's a lot more history too. They had gotten married in 2008. Was it 18? Yeah, he was divorced in 2014 from his previous wife, who was a sex worker. They met when she was 20. They were married for, I believe, 14 years, had some kids together. They divorced in 2014, and then he met Ariel at work. They married in 2018. And this all happened last year. So my point is he's on trial right now. And opening statements began at the end of last week, where basically the prosecution was saying not only was this attempted murder, but he had 3 different methods that he tried to, complete his plan with. The rock, the syringe, the cliffside selfie. And so when that didn't work, he moved on to the next method. And what I had teased you a little bit about at the start of this episode is that over the weekend I filmed with Hulu for this case. And that episode releases tonight on Hulu. So you can get fully caught up with the case. I believe it's more of like a part 1 style episode because obviously the trial is still ongoing, which, side note, Ariel was testified on Tuesday, which happened to be not only her birthday, but also the anniversary of the attack. Because remember, he took her out on her birthday. And so I think they're going to do a follow-up one too, but it's a very interesting case. It's like, you know, beautiful paradise, Hawaii, this crazy thing. And a term that I learned through all of this too is alpine divorce, which makes so much sense. And it's basically when spouses take or lure their partner to the mountains or the cliffside or dangerous trails to where they either then abandon them, say like, and leave them. So then they die because they're lost or they're like whatever reasons, or they try to do something like this. And it's murder, of course, but it's like the loophole of not having to get an actual legal divorce. So it's an alpine divorce because of the elements. So there's like this weird term now going on about that. I know. So anyway, that episode releases. It may actually be out right now. I'm not sure what time they release it, but it's Thursday on Hulu. So go watch it. See your girl. We recorded here in the studio, in the set, and I can't believe the fast turnaround. We literally recorded it on Saturday, and the episode is out. So stay tuned for more on that. But yeah.
That's a wild one. I mean, I obviously have a lot of questions about that case, but it's just get a divorce.
Just get a divorce, Gerhart.
And also, why are you using this selfie as like some sort of an explanation when obviously the writing's on the wall and she lived to tell the story?
Well, so he's saying, and this, you can see more of this in the episode. The defense is saying, no, she was having an affair. They obviously were having a tough time. They went for this hike. She admitted to the affair on the hike. And what started as what they're calling like a couple's squabble quickly escalated. And that Gerhart, he was defensive and reactive, and it was heat of the moment. That it wasn't planned, that this wasn't like, it was just a fight that escalated between a couple. But that's where the prosecution is like, well, then why'd you have syringes on you? We think you attempted to push her off the cliff.
And why were they trying to take a selfie if they're in a fight?
Exactly. Well, the defense's strategy. I get
We're
it.
in an argument. Let's document this.
Let's take a pic together. So yeah, it's a very, very interesting case. And so go watch that episode on Hulu. Other than that, as a reminder, a new episode released this Monday on the Serialistly feed, a new episode released on the 10 to Life podcast feed. Follow both podcasts if you are a podcast listener so that you don't miss any of those. And I will be back with you first thing on Monday with an all new deep dive into a case. But another friendly reminder, make sure you're subscribed on YouTube, not only my podcast listeners, but my YouTube peeps, because I am going to put that deep dive out of the 2 teenage girls and all of the footage that we've been able to obtain from that. And so if you're subscribed, you'll be notified of that. But until the next one, I guess we could say all of the things. Be nice. Don't kill people. Just get a divorce. Don't join a cult. Duggars.
If you see something, say something.
If you see something, say something. And stay safe. All right. Bye.